Imagine being told your whole life that something precious, something sacred, would one day be yours. You grow up believing in that promise, holding on to it like a small light in the dark whenever life feels unfair. And then, in one quiet moment, it's ripped away from you. Not because you didn't earn it, not because you broke trust, but because, according to your parents, you became too successful to deserve it. That was the exact moment when my definition of family changed forever. The heirloom wasn't just an object. It wasn't just a necklace or a painting or a piece of jewelry. It was history, weight, memory, passed down through generations like a thread tying us all together. For as long as I can remember, I was told it would one day belong to me. As a child, I used to sneak into my mother's room just to open the wooden box and look at it under the light. I imagined the day she would place it into my hands and say, "Now it's your turn to carry the family story forward." But when the time came, my parents handed it to my younger sister, smiling as though it was the most natural thing in the world. And when I confronted them, when I asked how they could break a promise carved so deeply into my childhood, they shrugged and said words that still echo in my mind. "You don't need it. You've already succeeded. She deserves something too." Those words cut deeper than a knife. You don't need it. As if family love, fairness, respect could be measured like wealth. As if being successful in life disqualified me from being treated with basic decency. I stood there, frozen, realizing this wasn't just about the heirloom. It was about everything. The favoritism, the excuses, the way my accomplishments were twisted into reasons to deny me the things I had earned. Have you ever felt like your success, instead of being celebrated, turned into ammunition against you? Like every step forward you took only fueled the jealousy, the bitterness, the unspoken competition in your own family? That's what it felt like. I wanted to believe it was just a mistake, a misunderstanding. I wanted to believe they would come to their senses and apologize. But the more I replayed that conversation, the more I realized the truth. They hadn't made a mistake. They had made a choice. They chose my sister. And in choosing her, they told me exactly where I stood. The irony was, my sister never wanted to work for anything. Growing up, I took summer jobs, studied late, built a career brick by brick, while she floated through life, cushioned by excuses. My parents shielded her, covered for her, paid her way when she stumbled. And me? Every stumble I made was a lecture. Every mistake was a disappointment. But I kept going. I built a life they said would be impossible. And when I finally arrived, when I was standing tall, they turned around and used my hard work as a reason to strip me of what I was promised. For days after, I couldn't shake the anger. It wasn't even about the object itself. It was about betrayal. If they could break this promise so easily, how many other moments of favoritism had I brushed off as normal family dynamics? How many times had I minimized the sting of equal treatment, telling myself it didn't matter, when in truth it was carving deep scars into me? One evening, I sat alone, staring at my success, the home I had bought, the career I had fought for, the life I had built, and I realized something strange. For years, I had craved validation from people who had no intention of giving it to me. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I became enough, then maybe they would treat me equally. But the heirloom shattered that illusion. It didn't matter what I achieved. They had already decided my role in the family story. I was the strong one, the independent one, the one who didn't need love or fairness because I could survive without it. And my sister? She was the one to protect, to shield, to indulge. But here's the thing. Survival isn't the same as love. And independence doesn't erase the human need for fairness. So what do you do when your family looks you in the eye and tells you that your success means you no longer deserve care? Do you walk away? Do you fight? Do you swallow the hurt and pretend it doesn't matter? That night, I decided I would no longer let them define my worth. If they wanted to give away what was mine, fine. But they couldn't take away the truth of what I had accomplished, and they couldn't silence the fire inside me. I began to reframe the story, not as a loss, but as a revelation. Because sometimes the most painful betrayals are also the most liberating. It didn't happen overnight. Anger still burned in me like embers, flaring up when I saw my sister flaunting the heirloom as though it had always been hers. She would wear it at family gatherings, catching my eye with that smug little smile, knowing exactly what she was doing. And my parents, they would beam at her, ignoring the storm building in my chest. Each time, I thought I might explode, but instead, I let silence be my weapon. I let their choices speak louder than any argument I could make. Over time, I noticed something fascinating. The more I stopped trying to defend myself, the more obvious the imbalance became to everyone else. Relatives began to notice, friends whispered questions. Even at family events, the tension became so thick you could slice it with a knife. People asked me quietly why I didn't wear the heirloom, and I would smile and say, because it wasn't given to me. That simple truth carried more power than 1,000 angry words. But the story doesn't end there, because one dinner, one simple evening around a table, changed everything. My sister, comfortable in her role as the chosen one, let her arrogance slip. She began to talk about how unfair it was that life had been so hard for her, how I had been given all the opportunities. My jaw nearly dropped. She was wearing the heirloom around her neck while complaining that I had been handed everything. And my parents, they nodded along, indulging her narrative. And in that moment, something inside me snapped, but not with rage, with clarity. I realized they were trapped in their own delusion, rewriting history to justify their choices. And that heirloom, once a symbol of betrayal, had become a symbol of their blindness. They couldn't see me anymore. They could only see the roles they had assigned us years ago. And here's the twist. The more they clung to those roles, the less power they had over me. Because the truth was, I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their heirloom. I had built my life from the ground up. And while they clung to outdated symbols of tradition, I had forged something stronger: independence, resilience, and a future that was entirely mine. Still, the hurt lingered. Still, I asked myself late at night, why wasn't I enough for them? Why was success twisted into punishment instead of pride? Those questions haunted me, but they also fueled me. They reminded me that sometimes family isn't who you're born to. Family is who shows up, who keeps their word, who celebrates your victories instead of resenting them. And the most shocking part, life has a way of circling back. Because years later, when my sister stumbled, when my parents needed help, the very person they dismissed as too successful was the only one capable of lifting them up. And by then, I had a choice to make. Do I extend my hand to the same people who denied me fairness? Do I rise above? Or do I finally let them taste the consequences of their actions? That's when I realized the heirloom, the betrayal, the pain, it was never really about me losing. It was about me learning. The choice weighed on me for days. My parents called me, their voices strained, layered with a false sweetness I hadn't heard since I was a child. They wanted help, financial, emotional, practical, because the daughter they had favored for so long had run into trouble. She had debts, failures, mistakes piled so high they couldn't cover them anymore. And suddenly, the too successful one, the child who supposedly didn't need love or fairness, was their last hope. I wish I could tell you I felt nothing when I heard their pleas, that I had become immune to their manipulation. But that wouldn't be true. Inside, I was torn apart. One side of me, the child who still longed for fairness, whispered, maybe this is your chance to finally prove yourself, to earn their love by saving them. But another side, the wiser side, whispered louder. Why should you rescue the people who never rescued you? That battle inside me was brutal. Family ties can pull harder than logic, harder than reason. For days, I carried that weight with me, wondering if refusing them would make me cold, heartless, vindictive. But then I remembered the words that had haunted me for so long. You don't need it. That phrase echoed in my head until I realized something life-changing. They were right. I didn't need their heirloom. I didn't need their approval. And I certainly didn't need to sacrifice myself once more for people who had shown me time and again where their loyalty lay. So when they called again, expecting me to swoop in and save the day, I answered calmly. I told them I was proud of what I had built, but I wasn't going to undo years of their favoritism by pouring my hard-earned success into fixing problems I didn't create. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. My mother sputtered, my father tried to guilt me, my sister cried. But I didn't bend. For the first time in my life, I didn't bend. And you know what happened next? They tried to smear me to the rest of the family. They spun tales about how I had abandoned them, how I was selfish, ungrateful, cold-hearted. But the truth has a way of bleeding through cracks. The more they tried to paint me as the villain, the more others began to remember how I had always been treated. Old wounds resurfaced. Cousins recalled my parents' favoritism. Aunts and uncles remembered my sacrifices. Slowly, people began to see the pattern. Meanwhile, my sister still flaunted the heirloom at gatherings, as if clinging to it could shield her from the truth. But to everyone else, that object became a joke, a shining symbol of unfairness. People whispered not about how beautiful it was, but about how ugly the story behind it had become. My parents didn't realize it, but by giving her the heirloom, they hadn't taken something from me. They had handed her a curse, a visible reminder of their betrayal. One evening, years later, I stood in front of a mirror, adjusting my outfit for a charity gala I had been invited to. My reflection stared back, older, stronger, weathered, but resilient. And for the first time, I thought about that heirloom without bitterness. It no longer hurt. In fact, I almost felt pity. For my parents, for my sister, for anyone who believed true value could be locked in a box or hung around a neck. They had wasted so much of their lives clinging to symbols, while I had built something real. And here's the deeper truth I came to realize. Families can twist success into punishment because it threatens the roles they've built for themselves. When you grow beyond the boundaries they set for you, it forces them to face their own limitations. My success wasn't the crime they pretended it was. It was the mirror they didn't want to look into. There's a lesson in this for anyone who has ever been told they don't need fairness or love or recognition because they are too strong or too successful. Strength doesn't erase the need for respect. Success doesn't cancel out the right to equality. And resilience doesn't mean you deserve to be used. If you've ever been in my shoes, standing on the outside of your own family, realizing the people who should have been your safe place were also the source of your deepest wounds, hear this. You are not alone. And you do not need their validation to thrive. Sometimes the greatest gift life gives you is the clarity to walk away, to build your own family of choice, to stop fighting battles that were never meant to be fair. The heirloom? I haven't seen it in years. Maybe it's still in my sister's possession. Maybe it's gathering dust somewhere in a drawer. But here's what I know. It doesn't matter. Because my legacy isn't tied to a piece of jewelry or a broken promise. My legacy is carved into the career I built, the friendships I cherish, the home I created with love. That's the heirloom I will pass on someday. Resilience, independence, and the refusal to let betrayal define me. As I look back now, I can almost thank my parents for their cruelty. Almost. Because in robbing me of what they thought mattered, they forced me to discover what truly does. And that truth, that clarity, is worth more than any object they could have given me. So if you've ever been dismissed, betrayed, or told you don't deserve what you were promised, remember this. The betrayal says nothing about your worth and everything about their fear. Let their choices reveal who they are, and let your response reveal who you've become. Family can hand away heirlooms, promises, even love, but they cannot take away the strength you forged in the fire of their betrayal. That strength is yours forever. And maybe, just maybe, one day they'll realize the greatest heirloom of all was never in their possession. It was the resilience they accidentally built in me. Never forget, sometimes the family you're born into is just the beginning of your story, not the end. Subscribe for more stories that reveal what really happens when betrayal meets resilience.